If this scenario was to happen, men would simply harness women up to a generator and use us to power the patriarchal world. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about books. And today I'm going to be wrapping up August because we are now in September. The weather is changing, autumn's on the way, and it's time to say goodbye to the last of the summer. But I'm not sad about it. I love the autumn, especially when all the leaves change colour and we get to wear boots and snuggly jumpers and drink even more coffee than I usually do. So I read 10 books in August, so like I've done before, I'm going to split this wrap up into two, so you'll get a bonus video on Wednesday. So today I'm just going to talk about the books that I read for my reading challenges. These are all backlist titles. And then on Wednesday, the video will be about the new releases or new-ish releases that I've had as NetGalleys for review. As some of you might be aware, I started a new job this week, so I'm feeling a little bit mentally fried. I've spent the week doing all the induction stuff and just trying to get my head around this new area of work that I'm doing. So bear with me if I just end up talking utter nonsense. I'm enjoying the new job, the people seem really nice, and I'm so excited about the project that I'm going to be doing. But yeah, I am feeling the fear because the project has the potential to be amazing, to help a lot of people, and I'm feeling the weight of it on my shoulders and just having that confidence crisis of, oh my god, am I going to be able to do it? Am I the right person for this? So I'm looking forward to a weekend of doing not very much, relaxing and reading books just to de-stress from all that. But enough about me, let's get on to the books. Like I've done in a previous wrap up, I'm going to start with my highest rated books first because I think they deserve the most attention, but please do stick around for my lower rated ones as well, because sometimes it's just fun to bitch about books. So my first 5-star read for August was The Power by Naomi Alderman. This book is so good. I honestly, I tore through this. So this is set in a world where young women and some older women have suddenly developed the power to generate electricity from their bodies. And this totally flips the power dynamic, and it's now men that are the ones who are scared to, you know, walk down a dark alley on their own at night. But inevitably, with that power shift, there are those that want to use it to their own kind of nefarious ends. This book's told through 4 perspectives. One is Roxy, who is the daughter of an English gangster. There is Ali, who is American. I think she's mixed race, and she's kind of been chewed up and spat out by the foster care system. We have Margot, who is a mayor in the US, and in her story we also get some of the story of her daughter Jocelyn. And then there's Tunde, who is a Nigerian man who becomes a journalist as he has been in a position to chart the time where this power started to show itself. It's told over the first decade of this power, from the first sparks of it through to things like civil war, religious cooptation of the power, and the eve of gendercide. I thought this book was fascinating. It's not an easy read, it's quite violent, it's quite dark, but it took me to places I hadn't expected whilst staying rooted in a world that was eerily recognisable as our own. Dotted throughout the book are, see if I can find one, are artefacts that have been discovered 2,500 years after the time that this book is set, and I quite enjoyed the satirical look at these, really cutting commentary on rape culture and the mistreatment of women in this flipped perspective. I've seen people call this book a dystopia, but I don't really think it can be called that because it really does mirror the experiences of a lot of women in our world today. But at the same time, I don't think it can really be called a utopia because inequality against one gender will always have repercussions for the other gender, even if those who are in power are too blinkered to see that. And I think this book examines that really well, even though it's quite broad strokes that it takes, and it does take it to quite extremes. Obviously, as I read it, it made me think a lot of The Handmaid's Tale in taking that gender imbalance to an extreme, but it also made me think of Mallory Blackman's Noughts and Crosses, because that's another book that flips the power structures. And much when I was reading Noughts and Crosses, I was a little bit sad that this new vision of the world under different powers was just or even more violent than the current world that we live in. I like to think that in those cases actually we would end up with a more peaceful, more equal world. But let's face it, given the current levels of misogyny that I see on Twitter, probably if this scenario was to happen, men would simply harness women up to a generator and use us to power the patriarchal world. I've had this book on my shelves for ages, and I hoped it was going to be good, and I really wasn't disappointed. I'm glad I finally got around to it. It's really smart. At some points it has the feel of an adventure story, and it raises a lot of really good questions about society. I've got another one of Naomi Alderman's books on my bookshelf, Disobedience, and I can't wait to get to that at some point. At some point, my usual caveat, because I absolutely loved this book. My next 5-star read was The Changeling by Robin Jenkins. This is a book set in Scotland in the 1950s, and it tells the story of Charlie Forbes, who's a teacher, who decides to take one of his most promising but very deprived pupils, Tom Curdy, away on holiday with his family. So it takes us from a school in the East End of Glasgow through the depths of the slums in which Tom lives, and then to the Argyll seaside where the action really takes place. Tom struggles to assimilate in a middle-class holiday. Charlie's children really don't warm to him, and the other adults on the holiday, Charlie's wife and his mother-in-law, have been really against the idea from the very beginning. So things do not go the way that Charlie has hoped, and the result is devastating. I really enjoyed this book from so many different angles. As a story, it's really well paced, the writing's pretty flawless, and the characters are really fleshed out. I live in a similar Dun-the-Water town to where the book is set. In the first half of the 20th century, Glaswegians would usually holiday by coming down the Clyde River to towns a bit like mine. So I'm really familiar with Dunoon, which I think Dunroth in the book is based, and they also take a day trip to Rothsay, which I know quite well as well. My parents were babies in 50s Glasgow, and I think my dad's family did quite a few Dun-the-Water holidays as well. So it was a real joy to read a book with this kind of personal slice of history. It was quite a visceral read for me. But more than that, this book is a really sharp look at performative altruism, particularly taking the white knight approach to people who live in poverty and deprivation and the damage that can be done. I think Charlie has good intentions, but his benevolence never really extends to creating any sort of bond with Tom, and I think that would have made all the difference. I think in choosing Tom, he's picked a child that will reflect well on him rather than it being a completely selfless motive. And that's really shown when another little boy who comes from the same slum as Tom shows up, and Charlie does nothing to help him. He completely ignores him and kind of leaves him trailing behind them a bit like a dog, and actually has the thought, I wish he was a dog because then I could throw stones at him to get rid of him. And when the whole family is confronted by the reality of Tom's background, we really see the attitudes that have prevented them from being any sort of good influence on Tom's life. And I don't judge them for that, because there is such a gulf between the two families, and they've probably never been exposed to it in such close quarters before. But I think it really does serve to highlight the fact that Charlie was never in a position to carry out this act of charity, and really serves to highlight how systemic change is far more important than, you know, a hobbyist philanthropist, which I can never say without sounding like I'm from Tudor England. But yeah, I thought this book was super powerful. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would definitely be looking out for more Robin Jenkins books in future. The first 4-star read I want to talk about was Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. And this is a book about a political sex scandal. It's not a fictional retelling of the Clinton and Lewinsky scandal, but it does draw heavily on that. And I was too young at the time to really fully understand what was going on when that scandal broke. But over the years I have become quite interested in it. Obviously, you probably all know my views now, but you know, an affair is always wrong, but it's wrong on both sides of the people committing that affair. And I always did question how it was that Monica Lewinsky was the one that really bore the brunt of the fallout from that, when it was Bill Clinton who was the one who was cheating on his wife. It was Bill Clinton who was older, it was Bill Clinton that had all the power. So the disparity between how they were treated has always intrigued me. So this book's about Aviva, who is an intern for Congressman Levin, ends up having an affair with him, which is exposed in quite a public way. And while he steps away from it quite unscathed, Aviva's reputation and her hopes for the future are completely trashed. While his career continues to climb, Aviva can't get employed, she can't even go to graduate school, so she makes the decision to move away, change her name to Jane Young, and start her life over as a wedding planner. And things go well, but when a slimy customer and her own daughter start to uncover her secrets, there are really big repercussions. I thought this book was really powerful. It chimed a lot with the things that I've thought about, not just about how that political scandal came out, but also things like slut shaming, and it's not told just through the eyes of Aviva Jane, but also her mother, her daughter, and the wife of the congressman. So it shows how affairs and the fallout, particularly on a big scale like a political scandal, can really damage more than just the people who were involved in the affair. And it's really only the women that feel the shockwaves of this. Congressman Levin doesn't get his own voice in the book, and I think that's really representative of the fact that it doesn't really touch him at all. But there is a lot of fun in this book as well. Zevin's got a really subtle wit, and so she makes these really powerful points, but it's done in quite a light touch way. The book's really well paced, the characters are really intriguing, and the book says a lot in quite a short read. And so again, I will be looking out for more of Gabrielle Zevin's works. I've had the storied life of AJ Fikry on my Goodreads TBR for ages, so I'll be looking out for a copy of that. My next 4-star read was Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Now, considering I have had the image of Miss Havisham in my head since childhood, I think it was from like the 80s Disney adaptation. I watched it with my mum, and I just remember the cobweb covered wedding cake and her in her disintegrating bridal dress. I've had that in my head for so long, and I quite enjoy classics, so I have no idea why it's taken me so long to get to this, particularly since I've read A Christmas Carol and I really enjoyed that. But I'm so glad that I finally got my butt in gear and read this book. Not really related to the book itself, but I really struggled with the reading experience of this. My Kindle said it was only like 200, 300 pages, and I couldn't understand how I was making such slow progress. I really felt like I was slogging through it. And then combined, I'd seen another booktuber recently say that because this was published originally as a serial in newspapers, Dickens kind of padded it out because he was paid by the word. But about halfway through, I looked up a paperback version, and it's over 500 pages long, so I gave myself a shake and stopped focusing on my progress and just really started to enjoy the book. So if you don't know, this is the story of Pip, who is an orphan being brought up by his abusive sister and her quite soft husband Joe. And there are two encounters near the beginning of the story that really change Pip's life. The first is in a graveyard where he encounters a convict which he is scared into helping, and the second is when he is sent for by the rich but reclusive Miss Havisham to entertain her in her home by playing with her adoptive daughter Estella. Estella is beautiful, but she's aloof, and she's kind of been groomed to be very cold and to break the hearts of men as sort of a revenge for Miss Havisham's own experiences when she was left on her wedding day. Meeting Estella has a massive effect on Pip. He falls completely in love with her, and as a result he's left very unhappy and ashamed of his life as a common rough boy. But Pip is taken from his life as a blacksmith's apprentice by an anonymous benefactor who sets him up with enough money for him to become a gentleman, and in this he is determined to win the heart of Estella. And as he assumes that his benefactor is Miss Havisham, he feels that they are destined to be together. But having everything he wants doesn't turn out to be exactly how Pip had hoped. This book really serves as a lesson for us not to be unhappy with our lot, not in the sense that we shouldn't strive for better, but that we shouldn't overlook the relationships and love that are around us, even in the worst of circumstances. You know, there's nothing wrong in Pip following these great expectations, but there is something really sad in what he loses in the process. It's really, you know, a kind of be careful what you wish for story. And, you know, I'm glad that Pip went through what he went through, because I think he learns valuable lessons, and we as readers also learn valuable lessons. The characters in this book are some of the best I've ever read. Pip is flawed, but he's still likeable. Miss Havisham is just amazing. Wemmick is a brilliant sidekick, and there are just loads of other characters. Oh, and Joe, how can I forget Joe? I love Joe. But there's just tons of other characters that are just really interesting. Dickens is great at crafting them, and often they will teeter on the brink of being caricatures, but they never quite fall into that pit. And his writing is just brilliant as well. His scenes are really vivid. His kind of musings on matters of the heart and emotion are just perfect. I think if I was the type of person to highlight quotes as I'm reading, this book would just be glowing with fluorescent yellow. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Could it have been 100 pages shorter? Probably, but I don't really care. I love this book. My next 4-star read was The Unlikely Adventures of the Shergill Sisters by Balli, Kaur, Jaswal. I was not excited about this book at all. This was the August pick for the Shelterbox Book Club, and when it arrived I was a bit like, Just on looking at the cover and the title, I was expecting it to be just schmaltzy fluff. I was a little bit more interested once I read the blurb, and actually this book has a lot in it to enjoy. So the 3 British Punjabi Shergill sisters are tasked to go on a pilgrimage to India after their mother dies. It's a pilgrimage that she was unable to do herself, and she wants her ashes to be scattered in the country that she called home. None of the sisters want to be there. They're not close. They're all nursing their own resentments and guilt around their mother's death, and they all have secrets that they haven't told each other. But things tend to come out, especially when you are forced into close proximity and travelling a country that you've never been to before. In some ways I was right about the fluff. There is an element to the writing of that kind of lighter fiction which I tend to avoid, particularly in things like the slapstick nature of Sister Jasmine's story, and just basically her story arc in general. And there's other kind of comedy moments that didn't really chime with me at all. And the writing style itself is quite light, even in the discussion of some quite gritty topics that this book gets into. But it was the inclusion of those topics that really sold the book to me, and actually I think the lighter writing style kind of worked to balance out those darker topics, because I think without that this would have been quite a bleak read. I felt all 3 of the sisters and their mother came across really distinctly, really rounded as characters, and I appreciated that India in this book is portrayed not only as being exotic and different and filled with beautiful sights, but also in a way that doesn't shy away from the less attractive things like misogyny and pollution. But the ending is pure fluff. But to be honest, by that point the book had won me over, so it didn't really matter. My first 3-star read was Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Yeah, so some of you, if you saw my Dewey's 24-hour readathon vlog, you'll know that I was struggling a bit with how I felt about this book. I do think, now that I finished it, it had grown on me a little bit, but I do think this book for me was a victim of its own hype. I've seen so many people talk about it and recommend it and love on it that I was expecting something incredible, and my experience was a little bit more lukewarm than that. So this is the story of Kiko, who works in a convenience store and has done since she was 18. And for her, she enjoys her work, and it provides a sort of structure for her to understand the world. By copying the ways of talking, the ways of acting, even the ways of dressing of her fellow workers, she is able to kind of pass as a normal person, which she has struggled to do in her earlier life. But now that she is in her 30s, she's feeling the pressure from family and friends to want more, to maybe pursue a career or a relationship, and these aren't things that she necessarily wants. So when a new member of staff joins the convenience store team, a man with some pretty extreme views on conformity and society. Kiko takes some drastic action. I've heard people speculate that Kiko is autistic. It's never said in the book whether she is or she isn't, and actually for me I don't think it matters. Although I would like to read a book from an autistic perspective, I think in this book Kiko just is who she is. It was her way of seeing the world that really drew me into this book. I thought it was fascinating and threw up like a lot of really valid points about conforming to what other people think you should be or what you should do with your life. However, where the story fell apart for me was in that repulsive male character, and I think I need to let off some spoilers here if I'm going to discuss this. So if you don't want to hear this, if you haven't read the book yet, just mute me or skip me or whatever. I'll hold my hand up, and when my hand goes down you'll know that it's safe to listen again. But I just thought he wasn't pleasant to read at all, not even from like a love-hate perspective. And I felt Kiko's actions relating to him, it just made me deeply uncomfortable to read it, because until that point in the book I hadn't viewed Kiko or the way that she saw the world as being stupid or naive, and I didn't understand how someone who took her ways of being from those around her could then make decisions relating to this man who other people thought was like lazy and weird at best, and at worst unhinged. And then to consider his proposition of moving in and her supporting him, it just didn't gel with the expectations of those around her. So it didn't seem to me like an action that Kiko would make, considering that she was very influenced by the opinions and actions of those around her. Hand down, spoilers over. So yeah, I just struggle to know how to feel about this book. It was a strange, quirky story with a lot going for it, but something really stopped me buying into it. And then my final book for this video and my second 3-star read was Greta Thunberg's Nobody is Too Small to Make a Difference. This is a collection of her speeches, and actually this is rounded up from a 2-star because I gave it an extra star because the messages in the speeches is so important, but actually my review is on the book itself rather than Greta or the content of those speeches. Climate change is very real, it's very dangerous, and it's very imminently becoming irreversible. I was aware of that going into this book, but I probably have Greta to thank to some extent in raising my own awareness of this and raising its profile around the world. Her speeches are direct, they're impactful, in fact they're bloody terrifying, but they should be, and they are directed at the right people, those with the political or commercial or whatever power to actually affect change, those who have that power but are not doing anything. And that's kind of where I get stuck in reviewing this book, because compiling all these speeches together, speeches that were made on the same topic in a short space of time and to a completely different audience often than the sorts of people that would pick up this book, it just means that the speeches became repetitive and they lacked that power and impact that they would have had in their original context. I'd hoped for something more from this book, discussion of the evidence to back up the claims in the speeches, maybe something about those who could be doing, what they should be doing, what they aren't doing, who they are, why they aren't doing it, or even some sort of travel journal or memoir of Greta as she was making these speeches. But there's nothing of that. It is just a collection of speeches, and there's nothing to elevate this book, unfortunately. So yeah, I kind of feel it was a bit of a wasted opportunity, I'm afraid. So those were the challenge reads and backlist reads that I read in August. I'm glad I made the decision to split this video up because my butt has gone to sleep and I really need the toilet. So I will continue filming later on for those newer releases, and I will put that video up on Wednesday. So please watch out for that. In the meantime, have you read any of these books that I've talked about? What did you think about them? Are you inspired to pick any of them up? Let me know your thoughts because I love to chat books. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribed. I'm nearly at 100 subscribers, guys. I checked today and I'm at 98. That just blows my mind. When I started this channel in March, I really didn't think I would get any more than like 20 subscribers. So to be here in the start of September and already have nearly 100, that just blows me away. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed and who watches my videos. It really means a lot to me. Yeah, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you did. I upload a new bookish video every Saturday morning. So, well, apart from this week where there will be that extra one on Wednesday, but yeah, subscribe so you don't miss it, and until next time, bye. Jane Young by Gavilan.